Because one of the things also with Star Wars is you have the dark side and the light side of the Force, and that's always been kind of a black and white situation. The dark side, aggressive, evil, the light side, goody two-shoes Jedis. But in books, for example, now we have Fatal Alliance, which was the first book release actually connected to the game. We get to see the Empire, the citizen. The Empire does have citizens. Not everybody is a Sith Jedi. How does that incorporate into the game? Because not everybody is a Sith. How does the Sith Empire live their lives?
Well, one of the things that's important is, one, that evil is a cultural concept, right? There has been more time period in the history of the world where slavery, the rule of one man who was picked by some divine power, let's say he's Force sensitive or his dad was a king, whatever it was, that these ideas were considered normal and considered right for more of our time period from our own personal history than they haven't been. These are people who were chased out of the entire galaxy by the Republic, and to their perspective, they have one strong leader who saved them from dying, brings them order. They see the Republic as chaos and crazy. They're crazy people running around with no firm leadership, arguing amongst themselves, a complete lack of any sort of purity or bloodlines. It's very much about perspective. And the vast majority of them are not Sith. The Sith are a very small ruling class, and you don't really judge them the same way you don't really you don't judge the royalty and the monarchy. They're doing their crazy thing, and all right, Henry's got a new wife, and that's kind of weird, but whatever, I'm doing my job. And one of the places that really becomes exciting is the Imperial agent, who is an Imperial and not a Sith. And the Sith make his life really hard, and he has to decide where his loyalties lie. And a light side Imperial agent is a man who loves his people, who is trying to do the best things he can in the best way for the Imperials.
This is kind of a role player's dream as well, having, for example, the Sith pureblood. It's actually in the game. You can play one of the actual Sith race.
Yep.
And then you have, like you said, the Imperial officer. Is that something that plays out at all in the multiplayer parts of the game, or is that just something that RP guilds more or less have to come up with on their own?
Oh no, in fact, one of the things that's really interesting when you're doing multiplayer dialogue is different classes and different species have different options. So you can watch the pureblood totally try to pull rank and be a giant snot and you can try to, sort of cut him down and say like, hey, this is not, it's a Sith. You'll get things where, the bounty hunter will say something, the NPC will talk to them, and the Sith are like, why are you speaking to this mongrel, right? Like, I'm clearly the one you should be a bit Sith,
One interesting thing also when it comes to the storyline, we have the companions. Just setting up the question, will you be able to do the typical Bioware stuff, get a romance with one of your companions?
You can do all the typical Bioware stuff. So you can romance your companions, they can get mad at you, there are companions you can kill, which let me tell you, in a game where you can't save, right, 6 years later when somebody says, hey, why don't you grab that companion so we can run, you're like, oh, yeah, he's dead. Sorry. But yeah, some people like you, some people don't. They have affection, which comes from their choices, right? So when you're making dialogue choices, they're commenting on what they think about it. Their affection opens up new quests, new conversations, and those have XP attached to them as well. So it's another way of going up, it's another way of playing the game, and it's a great role-playing piece.
Because a Bioware game, a single-player Bioware game, which have companions, which you can romance or get mad at, or the entire, now we see with Mass Effect 3, that's actually the old choices coming back to bite us in the ass, so on. But the Old Republic, in theory, can run forever. What about the companion that I romance at launch? What about divorce? What about breaking up? What about marital status in general? Will that come back to bite me in the ass 3-4 years later?
Absolutely. In fact, one of Hal Hood, who's the writer for The Smuggler and the Jedi Knight, said, in fact, that was one of its stated goals, was to have the very first RPG romance that ended in divorce. Your companion characters, as is Bioware tradition, they know if you're romancing somebody else. There are definitely breakup states in the game now. There are also very different romances. The great thing about putting romance into an MMO, remember, each of the classes has their own set of companions, which meant we got to do more than just the traditional romances. We've got the great romances, we've got the sappy romances, we've got the horrible train wreck, oh my god, I should have never gotten involved in this person romance. We've got the sort of weird power play ones and the ones that are clearly somebody trying to get over on you. Like, we had a lot of fun and we got to do stuff that was very unusual that we would have never gotten to do if we hadn't had so many companions.
Well, to wrap things up, where are you now? How are things looking for launch? Where do you go from E3? As you said, your final E3 pre-launch. How do you go from here?
So we've got, I think, I don't know what the full schedule is, but I know we've got at least one more show going on. Development is just testing, polish. I get an entire email box full of bugs every day that I have to look at and say, a lot of them right now are pretty small ones. Hey, this guy didn't get the right clothes on. The dialogue says this guy is blonde, but he's clearly not blonde. Your paraphrasing is confusing and dumb, which is good because paraphrases aren't VO'd, so we can go fix that stuff. So, and that's really the whole team is right now trying to polish it up to a level that we can make sure that we get the big bugs out of the way so all of our giant, massive testers can find the little bugs.
And let's just end with the question you can't answer, but I know a lot of people want the answer to. I see people begging on Twitter more or less every day. Closed beta.
So if we are doing a closed beta, it will be very near the end of launch, right? Closed beta is primarily a let's bring it in and stress test everything, right? We already have 1,000+ people who are in testing. So, sign up for testing if you're not. Like,
we can talk about open beta if you want.
That's one I don't think you'll probably end up seeing. Our game is far too big to say everybody who wants to get in, come run in. If we do a closed beta, it'll be right near the end of so at that point you'll have your release date anyway, which you don't have right now.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you much.